Good afternoon. Sorry, good morning. We can say good morning first for our friend in Canada and America. Good afternoon in Middle East, and good evening as well. I would like in the beginning to welcome our panelists, Dr. Catherine Hack and Dr. Ejrim Shilibikova. Today, in our chat and talk, we will chat and talk about the models of higher education, practice fit for a post-pandemic world. My name is Dr. Ahmed Al-Kuwaiti, Supervisor General, the Deanship of Quality and Academic Accreditation at Imam Abdulrahman bin Faysal. Before we go through to introduce our panelists, I would like to welcome all of you again, and I hope you enjoy the presentation from both of the panelists. Really they have a lot to say about the topic itself. It's really, we need to hear from them where we are going. And thank you so much for the audiences all over the world. Also, I would like to thank Professor Abdullah Rubeish, the president of Imam Abdulrahman bin Faysal University, to give us this chance really to have and introduce this webinar series for the enhancement of equality skills all over the world. Before that, I think I need really to introduce the Imam Abdulrahman bin Faysal University to all over the world. Imam Abdulrahman bin Faysal, or we call it, or we really would like to call it IAU. It's located in Saudi Arabia, in Dammam, and by the Gulf Sea in the Middle East area. It's not a new university, of course. It's there for more than 40 years. It's a start in 1975, and the name has been changed all over within the years until become Imam Abdulrahman University in 2017. And earlier, it has been announced as a university, which is, it used to be a part of King Faisal University. In 2009, become University of Dammam. Then from that university also, we have another university, we call it Hafr al-Batin. But the things what we are really proud of in 2015, we have the full accreditation from the National Accreditation and Evaluation of Saudi Arabia, which is really highly appreciated to have this one. That's indicate the quality of Imam Abdulrahman University. And also after that, from 2015 up to now, we have plenty of accreditation of programs such as dental college, dentistry and nursing colleges, and also College of Allied Medical Sciences and College of Arts. And we can say also the other colleges we have prepare for the career accreditation, which is enhancing the quality all over. If we go through the next slide, please, which is also we are recognized in the ranking in the ranking agencies through the QS and through Times and through other universities. This is a long journey, really, of going to the quality through Imam Abdulrahman University. That's mean quality is really the heart of the work we have. This is why today we need to hear from our panelists, Dr. Catherine Hack and Dr. Ejrim regard this topic, which is also it's enhancing equality. We really have a real strategic framework for the university for enhancing quality and the skills. and hopefully it comes under a program, call it JUSUR in the university. And JUSUR, I just gonna touch it. This program or this webinar series, we have it. It comes under a program or initiative, as a matter of fact. It's a monthly. The reason is to accelerate and the process of improvement of IU ranking. JUSUR's initiative program was established, and the aim of it is to improve our university ranking and academic. Also, that's communicate the hub of IU to the community, part of initiative monthly Zoom webinar, and this is one of them for enhancing, organizing quality improvement, accreditation, ranking, issue concerning learning outcome, and teaching and learning as well. Also, this initiative program will encourage us to reach a specified level in the better known global ranking. Let me really introduce our panelist for today. I'm really proud to have Dr. Catherine Hack. Kay is the principal advisor, learning and teaching for advanced higher education. Her role includes developing, managing, and promoting excellence in teaching and learning, both generally and within STEM disciplines. She delivers a range of services to the higher education sector, including supporting strategic leadership and change in higher education, and building and maintaining a strong relationship with the STEM community, PSRPs, governments, and other organizations and individuals. She has worked with a diverse range of higher education providers, nationally and internationally, on key themes which aim to improve the student experience and outcome, including curriculum review, assessment and feedback, technology-enhanced learning, flexible learning, a student as partners. Welcome, Dr. Catherine, with us, and we're really proud of you to be with us today. Also, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Ejrem Shilibikova, is the director of the Center of Teaching and Excellence at the University of Canada West, international higher education strategist. She is an experienced university administrator and educator with a proven strategic focus, tested international and cultural communication and interpersonal skills, coupled with a demonstrated ability to achieve key institutional development and internationalization objectives. Successfully launched a 12 joint international master art and PhD program, designed and coordinated effective strategies for universities, promotion and international rankings, established and developed mutually beneficial and productive international partnership with 48 universities in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. She is also certified intercultural trainer and facilitator, designed and delivered 18 successful face-to-face and online courses. In her portfolio, she has 8 award-winning improvement projects and programs and research capacity, building and designing of new learning spaces and environments in higher education institutions. She is an artist and multilingual nomad for more than 30 plus countries. You are more than welcome, Dr. Ejrem Shilibikova, with us today. Now, I think I speak too much. I think I need to have the floor to my panelists, my colleagues today, to speak about the models of higher education practice fit for a post-pandemic world, and that will be Catherine Hack. Dr. Catherine, the floor is yours. You can share with us your PowerPoint if you have. Catherine, can you hear us?
Yes. I think you need to stop sharing your slide to allow me to share mine, but
Sure, I will. Yeah. Can you now, please?
Yeah, I think so. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
sure.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that kind introduction and the invitation and the opportunity to participate in this webinar on this really important topic, and to engage with colleagues around the world and particularly there in the Middle East. So my name is Dr. Kay Hack. I work for an organization called Advanced HE. We are a based in the United Kingdom, but we are a global membership organization, and we have members from all over the world, and many members in the Middle East. And I myself have had experience working in Saudi Arabia and visiting and working with universities there, which has been a really insightful and rewarding experience. But I must say the benefits, I like to look in the positives of everything. So the benefits of this COVID world that we're living in at the moment is that I get to many more webinars being delivered online, and so I can readily connect with colleagues around the world without the hassle and the pain of traveling. So I'm delighted to be here with you today. I've put together a slightly sort of broad and eclectic mix of slides, really kind of just to provoke some discussion. So I think in what I'm talking about, there might be more questions than answers, but hopefully that will just set us up as we go forward for a discussion. And I think Professor Ahmed Al-Kuwaiti, I'm happy to share my slides afterwards, so all of the links and resources will be available to you. So I think just really want to start off by reflecting on the fact that we are at a pivot point around the world at the moment, economically, socially, and environmentally. Changes to ways of living, learning and working that were already being driven by the fourth industrial revolution and artificial intelligence have really accelerated during the pandemic. Scenarios including a sort of predicted global recession, plus other scenarios that were predicted before COVID, such as longer working lives, more AI across changing the nature of professional work, perhaps geographical shifts in the center of excellence as high-tech manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, finance and IT, all perhaps being offered in different geographical locations. All of these will impact on the global demand for higher education. Thought leaders have recognized that the emerging skills landscape will not be supplied by this sort of one-directional pipeline from, young people go to school, they go to university, they get their degree, and then they go into the workforce. It's going to be much more complex and more of a network and an ecosystem between universities and employers in order to supply the needs of the workforce. And that requires agile and lifelong learning opportunities, where universities and learnings are at the heart of an ecosystem that provides seamless transitions between themselves as tertiary education providers and various new employment. And that really kind of is the nature of what I'm going to be speaking about to you today. So just put this slide here again. As I said, hopefully most of my slides are really here as a provocation and to stimulate some thinking and some discussion. When we think about what is actually the purpose of higher education, I have two images here. The one on the left is sort of the standing on the shoulders of giants. It's a sculpture or a statue based on that idea from Newton, that we can see further by building on the knowledge and the experience of those that have gone before us. The image on the right is a Shinryu shrine in Japan, and here, for those of you that know it, this shrine is built through traditional techniques, traditional wood and joinery with a kind of no nails or any kind of other things holding it together. And it's dismantled and rebuilt every 20 to 25 years using exactly the same techniques. And so that kind of skills and that knowledge and that technical expertise and that workmanship is passed on from generation to generation. And my feeling is that the challenge that we kind of, as academics in higher education, is that we try to bring all of that, like the image on the right, we try to bring all of that stuff forward to every new cohort that comes through. All of this breadth and depth of skills that make up the canon of our disciplines has to be taught to each new cohort. As well as giving them the ideas and the new skills and the new technologies that they need for the future. And I think we really need to take a breath and take an opportunity to think about what of that content, what of that canon of my discipline do I need in my degree program? And can I replace some of that content by just developing those skills for lifelong learning so that the students have the ability to identify and pick up the skills that they need to go forward. They don't need to have it all fed to them within that first degree program. So just something for us to think about. How do we make that balance and how do we make those decisions? So and I mean, really, that kind of just I suppose that this slide just illustrates those ideas, thinking about what and how we teach. So thinking about competencies over content, and some of the things that we'll be talking about today, hopefully, digital capabilities, sustainability, and employability, and delivering that through flexible pace and mode of learning, through inclusivity, through interdisciplinarity, and focusing on student-centered learning. So the topics that we're going to cover is thinking then again about those kind of future fit curricula. So how are those curricula developing the skills that our students need and the workforce want? And we know that the outcomes of education are shaped by the way that we teach and the way that we assess our students. So what strategies do we need for a reformed workforce? And underpinning all of that, as we have more remote, more distance, more flexible learning, what are the digital capabilities that staff and students require? So I said at the beginning, there's various challenges and opportunities currently facing higher education. One of the positive ones is that there's going to be, and there is continuing increased global demand for higher education. This need, as I've mentioned, to upskill and reskill the workforce. And then the third one there is this from 2015, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. Of providing inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong opportunities for all. How do we do that? How do we contribute to achieving that goal? And that one is incredibly challenging. But I think as we see, we are, and over the last 9 months, it's been brought home to us how globally connected we all are. And there's good things in that, and there's challenges in that. But we need to recognise to solve the problems, whether it's climate change, whether it's COVID, we need to upskill and think about higher education globally. And this requires engaging and participatory learning experiences. We aren't going to develop 21st century skills by using 19th century teaching techniques. So the didactic pedagogy and content-driven pedagogy is not really appropriate. So what are the teaching approaches that actually develop the 21st century skills? And certainly in the UK and other places around the world, we're seeing an increasing numbers of alternative providers in the higher education sector, whether this is small specialist providers, whether this is the sort of open education programs like MOOCs, or whether this is the big tech providers, so the likes of Google, Amazon, and Apple, all providing higher education certificates. And I just really refer back to, Professor Al-Kawiti when he was talking about the quality agenda at his own institution, that's what's really we need to address in higher education. How do we demonstrate that our programs are quality assured and provide value for money for students? And I think that's just something that needs to underpin when we're thinking about all of our practice. So I'm not going to go through the detail of these slides, but because they're going to be available to you. But there's long been prediction of the increased demand in higher education across globally, different in different areas of the globe. Arab states currently still quite sort of steady growth, but I think as you increase participation rates, you'll see an increase there. East Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean all kind of increasing very, very quickly in terms of trying to upskill and reskill their workforce. But what's clear from that slide is bricks and mortar can't meet that global demand. It's not physically possible to keep building enough campuses to meet that growing demand. Whether it's our beautiful traditional institutions or new modern ways of building campuses, it still can't be done just through physical spaces. And that really starts to raise questions about who is the on-campus sort of traditional 3-year degree for? Who is that going to become an elite experience, or is that just a matter of student choice? But it also means that we need to think about how we provide more flexible learning opportunities. And by flexible, I mean in terms of the student having the choice over pace, the place and the mode of learning. And certainly we've seen over in the UK sector and colleagues that I've worked with, certainly in Europe and other places over the last 6 to 9 months, I've started to recognise the challenges and putting the choice in the hands of the student, how they engage with content. So perhaps they have been able to come and participate in on-campus learning through a sort of physically distanced but engaged learning on the university campus. Perhaps they've taken part remotely via some Zoom or other webinar platforms, and the teachers are being asked to do this kind of what we call a high flex approach, where you provide the content and the student decides how they're going to access it, whether it's online or face-to-face. And that throws up some really intriguing challenges. And just as a slight aside and an anecdote, one of my children's just back from university, his first semester at university, and has enjoyed his online learning experiences. But yesterday he ran a Dungeons and Dragons game. For those of you that are familiar with that, he was the dungeon master. So, controlling the game, and he had some of his siblings all joining face to face and some friends joining remotely. And so his comment afterwards that it was really stressful, making sure that everybody was listening and everybody was still engaged, managing that between the ones that were online and the ones that were in the room. And I haven't pointed out to him that's the challenges his teachers have been facing for the last semester, but I just thought it really brought it home, that this, even when you've got a really engaged group, it is still really hard to have that kind of hybrid mix. But higher education has always been open to innovation, and just sharing again this timeline of some what I think are the real key points over the last 150, 170 years actually. And the first one on the left there, I'm sure you or I certainly was really surprised, but the very first degree course that you could take that I could find was way back in 1858, where University College London here in the UK offered a course a full degree course by correspondence. So you could take your degree without having to set foot on the university campus. Other big changes, the Open University, again, I'm afraid that's another UK one, but really opened up this idea of anybody could come to university. You didn't need A levels, you didn't need some kind of pre-qualification. You actually, as long as you kind of demonstrated your competencies and your abilities during your learning, then you will receive the award, which was a real mindset and a real change set, and kind of lots of disgruntled voices in the sector saying that was reducing the quality. But I think currently celebrating their 70-year anniversary, I think we can 50-year anniversary, I think we can really recognise that they've done a fantastic job in terms of opening up access to higher education. The first fully online course delivered via the internet, which was a sort of a dial-up modem, was offered in Canada. And again, I think it was an important milestone because it was upskilling teachers in secondary schools in kind of, using computing, ICT, and integrating that into their lessons. So, I highlighting that one because it's reflecting of the challenges we're facing today, but using innovative techniques at the time to engage and upskill the workforce, recognizing that was really important. And that was developed in Canada, and I think kind of nearly wrecked the Canadian telecom system. Web-based delivery coming on board, Web 2 technology, that kind of read-write approach is being developed across the 2000s, and suddenly opening up that access even further, that anybody could comment on anything, anybody could publish anything. And with the pros and cons that have come with that. And certainly the critical thinking skills that are required. Now we're in that kind of open access space. There's not somebody else acting as a gatekeeper or a quality control keeper for the information we're receiving. So we need to develop those abilities ourselves. We need to develop our own gatekeeping, if you like, in terms of what knowledge we think is valid and why we think it's valid. What's the credibility? Where's that coming from? And that skill, when we go forward and think about this more in terms of thinking about digital competencies that students and we all need, is absolutely crucial. The onset then of MOOCs in 2011, and then the final one on that chain there is blockchain, where we've got that kind of open accreditation and ability to take accreditation for my learning and be able to use that in a number of contexts because of that kind of digital technology. With all of that innovation, this year, certainly in the UK, we stopped having this kind of traditional exam hall where you sat and regurgitated all that you've learned over the last semester in a 3-hour exam. And I think, as I said at the start, I like to look to the positives in anything. And if we don't go back to this style of exam, I think if we finally recognise that this is obsolete and not fit for purpose, then I think that will be one benefit coming out of the current situation, because people have been driven to use different types of assessment and really think about what it is they're trying to assess and develop much more kind of authentic means of assessment, whilst ensuring that they're still valid and they're still verifiable and they're still measuring the learning outcomes that we want our students to develop. Again, not going to go through the data, but when MOOCs came on board back in 2011, 2012, the great hype was predicted that would be the downfall of universities. We're not going to, rehearse those arguments. Once the hype died down, it's like, oh no, the people just enroll and drop out. But I think when we see their longevity, what we do see is that they are providing an opportunity for people to reskill and upskill. I think where they're not particularly useful is as an alternative. So if you look at the data, most people that successfully participate in MOOCs, it's as a second degree or a higher degree. So they've already got a degree, they've already got those learning skills, so they know how to navigate a MOOC and find the information. But in January, I'll give you links to the Advanced HE website, but in January, one of my colleagues from the University of Southampton here in the UK has written a really interesting blog about how they're using MOOCs across their programs at Southampton. So they're producing them, embedding them in their degree courses, offering them, obviously they're open access to anybody, but they're using them in a number of ways to deliver parts of their content. Their students get to engage with people outside the university. They're also using them as pre-course, supplementary and introductory modules. So lots of really interesting stuff in there, which would be worth looking at in January when that comes online. So we sort of talked about disruption in a sector, and we can think about it sort of as a disruptive or sustaining innovation. And again, just an example from UCL, sort of very traditional university. And despite, you know, their student numbers have grown steadily from just over 20,000 over 10 years ago to over 40,000 now. You know, they're constrained in their central London location. They can't increase student numbers. They don't have the space there. They've built a second campus in East London on the old Olympic Park. They have a transnational program out in Qatar. They offer MOOCs, and they also offer completely online courses via a consortium of which is called University of London Worldwide. So it's that kind of, I'm just really putting that there as an illustration that to increase numbers, you need to think about these alternative ways. And so although we're having these innovations in the sector, they're not disrupting, we're not ditching the traditional models, but just developing many, many more models and giving the students the choice. But again, that comes back to that key thing of quality, making sure that all of those different options provide quality and value for the students participating. This kind of really requires that we develop good ecosystems for this kind of flexible learning. If we're going to offer flexibility in terms of pace, place, and mode of learning, we need to develop good partnerships with employers, with other providers, whether of higher or secondary or further education. We need to be using the pedagogies that support the development of lifelong learning. We need to have the enabling technology, not just for delivering, but also for accrediting the things like blockchain. Students need to develop agency to take responsibility for their own learning. Both teachers and students need those digital capabilities. So just onto the next section, I'm probably going on too long. Ahmed, if you want me to stop, then please let me know. But just thinking about the future of the workplace then,
sure,
I'm not going to read through this quote. Oh, okay, thank you. I've touched on the fourth industrial revolution. I'm not going to go through this quote. That's going to be available to you, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the concept now. But I think the latter part of that, first of all, it's this kind of merging of ideas, how we kind of integrate physical, digital, biological. There's opportunities in that, and there's also challenges. And we really need to think and not just let these things kind of roll on and happen, but we need to think about how we harness technologies in order to make this kind of inclusive and human-centered future. And some of the technologies that are being part of that, you're probably all familiar with them, but how many of these technologies are we integrating into our teaching and giving students access to now? Because they're going to have to interact with them in the workplace. They're going to have to be accessing cloud computing, big data. They're going to be turning things on and off using the Internet of Things, using drones to collect data, to share information, to distribute packages and things, 3D printing and robotics. We can see a workforce where it's one person working with a whole lot of robots. So you're not the robot designer, but you are working with robots. So there's a whole lot of different skills coming there, and we need to be embedding those into higher education so students become familiar and understand practical, ethical ways of working with them. So just again, a reflective question, what does the fourth industrial revolution actually mean for you? What does it mean for your discipline, your institution, and your practice? So how are we actually thinking about our curriculum and our practice to prepare for this new way of working? And this kind of need to upskill and reskill the workforce, as I said at the start, has been recognised for a while. And this study from PwC back in 2018, already started to highlight some of the challenges. So 37% of people, are worried about automation putting their jobs at risk. But, on the positive side, 74% are ready to learn new skills and retrain to remain employable. So as the sector, those are the people that we need to be offering a viable option for them to reskill. Again, 60% think they will have, jobs for life are gone. And the last one I've got there is this recognition that the technology can't replace the human mind. There are some uniquely human skills that we can only provide. And it's how do we enhance those as part of what we're doing in higher education, the creativity, the innovation, and those are the things that we need to be developing with our students. I'm just including this, which kind of summarize some of the things that we've already been talking about, but just reflecting on that image on the right, which I think is maybe 4 or 5 years old now, I can't remember. But essentially, for those of you not familiar with it, but they trained pigeons to read radiography scans, and 2 trained pigeons were as effective as a trained radiographer. And certainly, like, the future of work is not clearly going to be pigeons flocking around our medical labs, but it's just illustrating that task is essentially an image analysis task, and you know, we can train a computer system to do that as effectively as humans. Now, that I'm not advocating that all our radiographers go out of business, out of work, but you know, they have more time perhaps for the human interactions, more time for the more complex diagnoses, more time for research. So how do we develop all of those other skills when that kind of core piece of their work, that image analyses, may be replaced by automation? So that's really just illustrates the things on the left there. We understand that we live in a climate of wicked issues. By which I mean that the problems we face as society are not just traditional, you know, problems with maybe 1 or 2 connections to go from the start to the finish. They are complex, they are interconnected. So fixing one part of the problem might actually have a detrimental effect on another. So we need to, when we're training our students, just solving problems, nice clean problems in their discipline, okay, that's all well and good, but it's not really very realistic of the real world. And we can just think about this in terms of a problem like COVID. You know, yes, we need all these healthcare professionals to address the problem in the first instance, but actually what we also need is good app developers. We need good governance. We need to be thinking about their economic impact. We need to think about ethical implications. We need good engineering. We need good logistics, just to name but a few. And all of those different disciplines need to be working together. So one of the key things that will coming, and I'm seeing certainly in the UK and other sectors, the US as well, is much more interdisciplinary and interprofessional learning. And that's one of the key things I think that we really need to think about. How can we, and it's a challenge, it's like a management challenge in our universities, but how do we get more of that going on? But when we think back to, you know, what I said at the beginning about how much of what's in our curriculum, you know, if we're going to have more interdisciplinarity, does that mean we have less just pure discipline? And how do we make that balance? I'm not going to go through this, but, you know, all of the UN sustainability goals require interdisciplinary thinking. You know, all of them, you know, to end poverty, to provide clean water, to address climate change, all of them need really deep interdisciplinary thinking. Other challenges that we're facing, coping with the aging society, clean growth, clean mobility, all of these, again, big challenges that society faces worldwide. So we're sort of, you know, there's obviously a growth in, you know, the need for digital skills and all the rest of it. And what we are seeing, that every single job is digital. There's no graduate jobs now where you're not going to need digital capabilities, where you're not going to need to be able to handle data ethically and share it appropriately, and keep it secure appropriately. So all of those skills need to be developed in our students. And okay, there are some key areas that we're going to be real employment going forward in terms of cyber skills, data science, AI, as I mentioned before, the Internet of Things and robotics. But there's also key areas of work that are going to require graduates as well. I have those pictures at the bottom there. You know, again, apologies for all the UK references, but I think our glorious government was suggesting that all the ballerinas and baristas were retrained as cybersecurity experts. And I certainly we don't want to live in a society where we lose all of those kind of cultural inputs as well. But yeah, the reskilling challenges is going to be interesting. But again, just some reflective questions for you. what are the graduate jobs do you think are going to be in demand, and what are those attributes that are required for success, and how are we preparing our graduates for lifelong learning? So recognizing that once they graduate with a degree in engineering or history or archaeology, and they might work for 3 or 4 years, but they're going to need to upskill and reskill, whether that's coming back to an institution, whether that's accessing some kind of open learning. But how are we giving them those skills? The final section, I can leave this part, or do you want me to carry on? Hello?
Yeah, please carry on, please.
Okay, so the very last section, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. Thinking about what and how should we be teaching, what are being called colloquially Generation Z. I'm sure you're all familiar with the terms, sort of technically those born after 1995. I think the key things are they've always had access to technology, but their world, this quote is from 2017, so there it's talking about financial, economic and environmental turmoil, and of course now we can overlay COVID on top of that as well. So previously there was this term called digital natives, which I dislike intensely, and this is what was used to describe those that have been brought up during the age of technology, familiar with computers and the internet. The whole problem with this digital natives narrative was that it really stopped those working in higher education from really engaging properly with developing digital capabilities. They just didn't want to go there. They didn't want to engage with students in that space because they felt that they would be one step behind, because they weren't of the native generation, and they were sort of really being told that you were never going to be up to speed with this stuff. And I think that was a really well, it's a theme that's carried on from that work, and it's very, very wrong, and shouldn't really be considered. And the reason I think it's wrong is just by using this kind of Neanderthal analogy. Actually, we sort of think about the Neanderthals as this kind of group of kind of perhaps sort of brutal or short, thuggish people, and they're all sort of lumped together in this kind of monolith of only having one set of characteristics, when actually when we look at them, they lived for hundreds of thousands of years across wide geographical locations and had many different types of culture, many different types of interaction, and by putting them all together and calling them one thing does them a disservice. I think it's the same thing when we think about how technology has evolved over the last 20, 30, 40 years. We've all been interacting with it in different ways, I should show my age by saying that I learned programming using punch cards, but it just really illustrates that we have all been interacting with different types of technology, and we're bringing different skills with us as we do that. But thinking about Generation Z, I'm not going to go through this because of the absence of time, but I've shared the link with you to a blog I wrote a while ago about thinking about who these students are coming into the classroom now. But I think some of the key points are really this kind of, they're aware of the sort of environmental challenges, they expect sustainable development in their curricula, they're aware of the choices open to them, so this whole idea of providing quality and value is really important, and they're also aware of issues around diversity and equity. Again, just a slide of, I just put this on here to make myself feel old, but all of the different technologies that have been created over the lifetime of our students, I just kind of find interesting and intriguing. And of course, we are now living in the zettabyte era. So the amount of data and information that are available to us has just been growing exponentially. Which brings us to this key point that because this data is so readily available, we need to switch our focus from that kind of content and knowledge into kind of skills and capabilities. The world isn't interested in what our students know, but what they can do with what they know. And that really should be informing how we're developing our curriculum. And again, just some questions for you. Excuse the reference to Jamboard, but thinking about the skills and behaviors and competencies you think are going to be useful for your graduates, and really think about that as you develop curriculum design. Many people, I'm not going to go through all these in detail, but many different groups have thought about those skills. these are all available, but some of the key ones, and I think have really been highlighted over the last 9 months, this ability for virtual collaboration, emotional intelligence, new media literacy, so thinking about new and engaging ways to engage in online environments, cognitive abilities, cognitive flexibilities and adaptability, creativity, critical thinking, and this kind of complex problem solving that I touched on before with the wicked problems, that kind of interdisciplinary thinking. And I think if you look across this, you'll see that these are those kind of uniquely human things that can't be replaced by machines and computers. Similarly, the UN have come up with some competencies as well. And although these are in the sustainability domain, I think they're very relevant to all areas of expertise, from sort of that kind of systems thinking, strategic thinking, collaboration, critical thinking. So just to wrap up and finish off, and I'm sorry I sort of rattled through and I've probably gone on too long. It was a little bit, I didn't know how long I was supposed to speak for. So
yeah, I think we have 1 minute left, Dr. Kay.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So just to really finish off then, just to think about how future ready are we? These are just some questions for you to take back home, take back to your institutions, think about as we go forward. Just thinking about how future fit is your program offer in terms of content mode of delivery, modes of accreditation. Are some programs and content, potentially facing obsolescence? What new programs and content can you develop? Thinking about the skills gap, thinking about the opportunities for blockchain, micro accreditation and badging. And in terms of your learning, what sort of competencies are you developing in terms of ways of thinking and ways of acting? So they're kind of strategic thinking, systems thinking. How are you using the latest technologies, and how are students developing the technical skills for success in the fourth industrial revolution? Hopefully that's just given you some food for thought. I appreciate I was probably speaking a little bit too quickly, but apologies for that. But thank you again. And those are all my contact details if anybody wants to follow up, and the resources will be available that I've mentioned. Some of the blogs and things are on the Advanced HE website. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine Hack. I really appreciate it. Let me, before I move to second panelist, let me just touch a couple topics. She really mentioned it as a summarization. COVID changing the nature of work in higher education. Dr. Kay emphasized the purpose of higher education in terms of building on the knowledge generation of workmanship by providing discipline-specific skills. What and how do we teach? Competences over content is essential with the flexibility. Develop digital capabilities of a student and the staff. She mentioned provide flexible learning opportunities. Also, she touched the challenges like increased global demand, need to reskill the workforce, providing lifelong opportunities, engaging and participatory learning experience, increasing number of alternative providers, innovation in the provision of degree, also disruptive or sustaining innovation in the system. She really mentioned a lot of things, a lot of ideas. Thank you, Dr. Kay. But I think the story is not finished yet. I think we have our panelist, Dr. Ejrem Shilibikova. She will continue with that, which is, I think she has a lot of things to say. Dr. Ejrem, the floor is yours.
Yes, just a second. I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
First of all, I would like to welcome everybody and thank you, Dr. Al-Kuwaiti, and also Imam Abdulrahman bin Faysal University for this hospitality and for this invitation. I'm really humbled and privileged to be speaking to this wonderful learning community and community of practice, I hope as well. So thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. It's 5:19 a.m. in the morning for me, So I'm really excited to be wake up so early. So again, I'm going to share my screen with your permission in the
Yes,
first place and continue with my presentation. Thank you so much.
go ahead. Sure.
Okay, sorry. Somehow it wouldn't allow me. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Yes, yes, go ahead. Sure.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So again, greetings from Vancouver and Canada. I will skip actually the introduction point because Dr. Al-Kuwaiti so kindly already introduced me. My profile is on LinkedIn, so you're welcome to connect if you are interested in further discussions, because the topic is so broad so far that it is impossible, of course, to cover everything. As the previous speaker also indicated, there are so many aspects of that. So far, I would like to focus on following things. So I will be talking about some trends for the post-pandemic world. We'll also be touching the developing digital capabilities for students and faculty and what institutions can do about that. And also we'll discuss about designing future fit education, models of higher education. And again, I will try to also bringing some ideas about the future fit curricula. So let's start. It is indeed very hard to foresight and predict the future. So far, if we are, as a human beings, want to not only preserve what we have achieved, but also progress, probably the major learning outcome for myself would be that we should really get our lessons from the all this disruption caused by the pandemic and look for future with the clear understanding of where we are and what are those signals of the current trends already. And look into the past as well, as Dr. Catherine Haag already, she gave that overview in the retrospect of from where we have come to where we are today. Indeed, and we are talking about the concept of the fourth industrial revolution. Once again, there is the new revolution, which is being powered by new technologies. But instead of those domesticated grain seed, the cotton gin, or the steam engine, the engine of this revolution is digital and robotic, but also it is now about pandemic. So not only technologies, but also new emerging threats, such as viruses, as we have seen, have potential to disrupt our economy and our civilization in general. And this is unprecedented. The consultancy firm McKinsey identified 4 global trends, mega trends, global shifts reshaping the world, which will impact our society over the years to come. You can check their reports and some forecasts online for sure. They touch emerging, they have identified emerging markets and urbanization, trade, people, finance, and data. Also accelerating technological change, responding to the challenges of an aging world. However, what some global trends, pandemic,
how fragile that global interconnectedness is. So therefore, what I suggest today is to, again, from my personal perspective, to identify some trends that probably we will need to revisit and recontextualize in our own local, regional realities. So we live in the, I will just slightly touch some of them. We live in a time of really technological marvels, right? Computers continue to speed up the advance of machine learning, the ability of computers to learn from data instead of from explicit programming as it was before. And there is this push for artificial intelligence that looks like the foreseeable future. And of course, robots now do almost everything, analyze stocks. In China, we see cobots, machines that can work in factories safely alongside with human beings. But the economy of the future won't be man versus machine. It will be man plus machine. So some of the fastest growing and highest paid jobs and combine advanced technologies with the soft skills only people can provide. So therefore, today we talk about hybrid jobs. Due to shifts in the job market and ever evolving technology, hybrid jobs are quickly becoming the new norm. And many companies are now looking for intelligent and creative employees who can productively work in multidisciplinary roles and use digital tools seamlessly. Burning Glass Technologies, an analytics software company, conducted a survey in 2019 that found that high-paying jobs of the future are more complex. And in referencing these roles, the organization coined the term hybrid. According to their report, these new hybrid jobs are not only growing fast and highly paid, but they're also immune to automation. So they combine uncommon skill sets, incorporating technical expertise with softer skills like analysis, management, and creativity. So most hybrid jobs can be broken down into 5 categories: big data and analytics, design and development, sales and customer services, emerging digital technologies, and compliance and regulation. And of course, we have cybersecurity issues to take care about as a company, as an individuals, as organizations. And big data, no need to say, previous speaker already mentioned blockchain, all other related also technological advances. It is indeed revolutionizing everything from social science to business, with organizations amassing those information in big proportions, right? So in big portions, hard to absorb immediately. There are also new industries. Today, we can see some paradoxical really phenomena when in TikTok, in Instagram or YouTube, we have new billionaires, right, who make money, the youngsters who use their skills, apply their skills, and claim they don't need education, they don't need college diploma, because they already have adapted to the digital economy and gaining profits, sometimes exceeding other higher paid jobs, right? Another, of course, aspect of this trend is increasing collaboration in the distributed workplaces. So these are two sound like oxymoron. We are remote, but being remote and staying remote and distant, working online from our homes, we still need to collaborate, learn how to be efficient and productive in a multicultural environment, which is now brings really remote cultures closer to each other, just at one click. And this is what I observe in our university, where we have 95% of our students internationals, from Mexico to China, from India to the remote also places in the Far East and in Eurasia. So students, to be productive in online learning environment, should learn, and being actually living in the different time zones, should learn lots of skills to cope with the current challenges. So And finally, what I wanted to add in terms of trends to think, and again, not only from the global perspective, but from the localized, contextualized perspective, where we really should analyze our local realities while still being connected to the outer world through internet. And over the past few years, observations and personal experience of being a student myself, a graduate student nowadays, again, doing my second PhD now in educational technology and learning design here at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, and being educated and being a mom of two teenagers, I see that we students entering the workforce and the business leaders who hires them, in some conversations, in my observations as well, they have revealed something important. To stay relevant in this new digital economic reality, higher education needs a dramatic realignment. So instead of educating students for the jobs that are about to disappear under this impact of technology, now because of pandemics, again, we should probably liberate somehow students as universities, students from those outdated career models and give them ownership of their own future. And higher education needs a new model and a new orientation away from its dual focus just on undergrads and graduate students. Universities can broaden their reach to become even more of powerful engines for lifelong learning. I would like to suggest, I just yesterday literally have purchased this online, which was one of my colleagues is in the board and the works for this startup that is called Future University Thought Book. So they have published 4 editions for times of crisis, for global world, and also for the 3 regions, I believe, for the North America, Australia, and Europe. So I suggest that there is to check for those interested. Indeed, really interesting and insightful product there of a huge group of academics, thought leaders, industrial also partners of the company that have been working on this thought book. And this is what they suggest. Just imagine a university without borders, without campuses, and without limits. So I think it is probably for more 2040, their imagination goes that far. However, for the next decade, universities will need to revisit what their roles in the society, their value that they deliver to their local communities in the first place. So how can we get ready for the future? Since my topic was defined as digital capabilities, of course, there are many ways to prepare for the future, but while talking about that, and then how can crisis be a driving force for universities to adapt quickly to the challenges and really focus on developing these new models for future generations. And so digital capabilities, what are they? We talk a lot or hear a lot about them these days. One of the leaders actually in this domain, the UK-based Joint Information Systems Committee, defined it as the capabilities that fit an individual for living, learning, and working in a digital society. So far, not clear immediately. What are they exactly? Therefore, if you just Google, you will come up with dozens and dozens of different frameworks, approaches, schemes. So this one is developed by this Joint Information Systems Committee. as you see, I will not be reading them. You can always check them online. There is this another interesting model by the Adelaide University in Australia. Another also Australian university was quite active and pioneering some developing and designing some framework for digital literacies. So there is a lot to explore, and that made me to think that every university can develop their own framework and adapt their need to adapt those frameworks or the literacies that we talk about to the local needs of their own community. It is hard to compare the community here in Canada and somewhere in the remote village in India, let's say, or a remote region of China or Central Asia, where I'm from. So therefore, I think similar to strategies that we develop as an institution, the frameworks for digital capabilities also should be a blend of those global trends and understanding of the global tendencies, as well as the challenges and emerging opportunities. However, this blend should include our local, regional, our community-based needs. This is my personal view. I would love to discuss and hear any alternative options for that. If you have any thoughts, I'm really interested and open to discussion. So far, I found this also interesting framework that I would like to share with you because I believe it is the most exhaustive one that we have. Higher Education Digital Capability Framework. And it's really interesting. In 2018, Holon IQ, this company, released an open source, the 16-point framework identifying key capabilities underpinning digital higher education. And this 16-point framework was used by institutions in different ways to articulate, share, and showcase current and emerging models in digital learning and to identify areas for strategic focus in development. So as you see, there are by name, by number, they can be regrouped according to those 4 dimensions: demand and discovery, learning experience, learning design, work and lifelong learning, and according capabilities, and according those domains they have covered. That made me think that these huge taxonomies they have developed being very insightful and quite wide, covering so many things that let's say one institution would probably get challenged in incorporating everything at the same time. Therefore, the needs of the university and the students and the faculty and the community where the university is located might define which particular capabilities you are going to adopt and incorporate in your instructional strategies, in your strategic plans, in your curriculum. So this is latest, the current form is the latest, it's 2020, latest higher education digital capability framework. And it's been quite informative for many institutions who've been already familiar with it in incorporating. And I actually may probably speculate that more and more frameworks will emerge and evolve. And as I said, they will be contextualized, adapted to the local needs. So, okay, we have these frameworks. So what do they mean for students? And for students, of course, when we think about the factors that would probably define their life path, their career path, we may talk about extrinsic factors as pandemics, viruses, emerging technologies, local economies, political situations, family situations as well. However, there are also intrinsic factors. And I believe, let's have a look at them. Again, digital literacies, but also human literacies. Similar to what Dr. Catherine Hack said, human aspect of future economy will evolve uniquely and will need probably more investment into exploring the harmonious ways of incorporating them with digital literacies and capabilities as well. So while the examples for digital literacies could be learning, there are many of them, right, based on that taxonomy. It could be learning to use software, ensuring security of their personal data, research data, creating some podcasts, or it could be using digital learning resources, new LMSs, being very quick learners for the new technological tools as they Zoom and some other many alternatives to Zoom. We at our university are using Microsoft Teams and also Big Blue Button as an alternative for students and faculty, so they have more flexibility in terms of the tools that they want to learn to use, and so they should learn. Also, students probably will need to learn how to develop a positive digital identity, and there are many more. However, what should be the nature and inner workings of humanics? This is what I call the, actually, I've read it somewhere, but I adapted to my own vocabulary in terms of if we have robotics, what will be humanics? Humanics would require more investment into developing new skills in what comes to communication, collaboration, and design of our interactions and relationship with the immediate environment, with the larger community and the global community. So how can universities help students? Of course, one panel is not enough to cover all, and it should be devised again according to the needs of students. And we really need to analyze what our students' needs and need to be agile as institutions in addressing those needs. And while devising or developing and implementing, first devising and developing our strategies, probably engaging students would be more efficient these days, since they're already exposed to using those technologies that probably not every faculty member would be able to use right away. So therefore, this closer collaboration and bringing together students and faculty in the same projects or in the same group circles, work circles, would be helpful to define the priorities for that particular institution. And also helping students to rewire their mindset for growth, for positive thinking, supporting their emotional, mental health, but also motivating them to go after their own inner urge in terms of first analyzing and understanding their own talents and skills, and also where they want to find themselves in the next decade. So help them in terms of counseling, mentorship, and many other ways that we probably will be creative in delivering. What about the faculty or staff? Today, indeed, being a learner-centered or student-centered institutions, we are focusing on what we should teach or how we should teach. However, it's our understanding of how students are learning today, how that learning changes today, has changed, is changing, and will change, and how they will learn further. We probably need to adapt more of open-minded, again, flexible, and based on experiment pedagogies, and also integrate the technology into the process. So we are not clear about, I'm not clear about what particular, I cannot say the one particular pedagogy or one particular learning theory as a solution to current challenges, or even to this question on how to develop digital capabilities based on that taxonomy. It's huge. So every single component of that would require probably one or several theories being applied. However, without exploring that, not only experimenting, practicing, but also aligning it to the research and trying to advance the current research on learning theories would probably help us to define the best pedagogies for our particular context and for our particular community, again, for the needs of our immediate students. So there are a lot to explore, and we live in really interesting times when we talk about not only pedagogies of oppressed, we talk about pedagogies of care these days, and again, because of pandemics. And pedagogies of care is emerging now, being along with other pedagogies that are based on, let's say, inclusive approaches like universal design of learning, right? So what those new pedagogies or revisited pedagogies would mean today in our particular one institution for our for the faculty community in that institution. So we should revisit and probably also inform our teaching practices, instructional strategies with those new research, evidence-based works to enrich our understanding of the current developments. And the second one is pedagogies for technology. Actually, there are not many taxonomies, while in pedagogies like of learning and teaching, there are many, like Bloom's taxonomy being the immediate thing to come to our mind when there would be probably Fink's taxonomy and other. While in terms of technology, there are not many taxonomies to think about immediately. So far in 2005, Lawrence Tamai introduced this technology, pedagogies of technology, the taxonomy for technology in higher education. So those, again, interested in exploring further, that is a really interesting work by Tamai. And I'm tracking these days since it was published back in 2005. It was republished several times. I read it for the first time 3 years ago. And since then I've been tracking who is citing this book and are there any new taxonomies are coming for how to integrate technology into our pedagogies. And I should say there are many innovative ideas to track. So this is also being challenging in terms of those loads and loads of information. So probably the best solution would be to prioritize what we want to focus at and adapt, and while being still open to the new ideas, build up our own capacity as an institution. How universities help, faculty, so review their professional developments, design experiential faculty professional development programs, and map digital expertise across different staff roles, because we cannot expect one faculty member to be an expert in all technologies, in all pedagogies, in all different tools. So probably really well-planned, well-balanced faculty professional development programs that aim at, while building that capacity and digital capabilities, digital literacies for faculty, also a really careful analysis of available expertise in the institution might be helpful, where faculty members can be mentors and guides to each other, sharing their expertise and skills in the technologies and tools that they are very good at. So having said that, just quickly in terms of the curricula, probably the major takeaways I made for myself while reading and exploring this topic, that digital capability is a part of the learning. Also, we need to build on the previous experiences and practices of students in order to really encourage the engagement. And also, we should encourage students to be open to synthesize, not only analyze, but understand and acquire the new knowledge, analyze, but also synthesize what they have learned to build up transferable skills. And finally, digital confidence for faculty and staff is really important because it empowers and equips them, still allowing keep their authority as thought leaders, as experts for students. And finally, final thoughts. While we are building our digital capabilities, the world will need a uniquely human education. I would like to reiterate that. We will need more creativity and everything in our lesson plans, syllabi, in the resources we use and provide our students with. Also agility, being flexible and being open, not to be afraid of failures, experiment with students together to be co-learners in this journey, on this path. And also resilience, because while we're talking about post-pandemics, we don't know if there will be new epidemics or new viruses coming up. It's very hard to say, but we can learn from what we have lived this year and try to find the ways how we can increase our resilience, physical, mental, and emotional. So thank you and happy holidays. Floor is yours, Dr. Al-Kuwaiti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ejrim. Very, very rich knowledge. Let me summarize what Dr. Ejrim Shelibikova mentioned. She really highlighted trends of post-pandemic world, design a future fit education, curriculum. Foresight is not about predicting the future, it is about minimizing surprise, identify the global trends, to identify emerging markets, how to live in digital economy, robotics, hybrid jobs are the new norm. Companies preferring employees to work in this environment. Hybrid jobs are immune to automation and inculcate creativity. Cybersecurity has to be strengthened, and the new industries are booming in social media. Big data is the key. Increasing collaboration and distributed workplace are more prominent during pandemic. Also mention how can we ready for a future, develop new models for digital capabilities, implementing of high education digital capabilities framework, also implement digital literacies and human literacies, and in her part, how can universities help the student? She mentioned encourage students in the strategist task forces, helping a student to rewire their mindset, adapting more agile approaches toward the student need, counseling and mentorship. And there is really also benefits for faculty, she mentioned. Thank you so much, Ejrim. Thank you so much, Catherine. We have a really couple of questions from the audience. It has been sent to me, and we have have only 8 minutes, but I think our audience, they deserve the question to have. My question for Dr. Hack about how we can improve the effectiveness of a flexible learning opportunities in this pandemic. Dr. Catherine?
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a real interesting question, and it's something that we've been really looking at with Advanced HE over the last 6 months, how we can develop those flexible learning. And there's plenty of examples on there of really exciting problem-based learning, interdisciplinary learning, bringing students together to really engage with a learning problem and working collaboratively. And through doing that, they're actually developing all of those other skills as well, those kind of virtual collaboration, those kind of problem solving, those critical thinking skills at the same time. So there's lots of examples of that on our website, and some really examples of practice, of good practice. But I think one of the big challenges, and one of the ones that I've been addressing myself particularly, is for those kind of practical subjects. And certainly, actually, one of the speakers at our conference in January is talking about how you develop engineering education skills, in a kind of remote environment, and lots of different ways of thinking about doing that, whether you're operating, laboratory equipment through using Internet of Things technology, whether you're kind of designing effectively kind of kitchen sink type experiments, which are really still evaluating the same kind of, whether it's fluid dynamics, whether it's heat transfer, people have been really creative and really imaginative. There's a wealth of really good examples out there, but we need to think about how to do that. But in terms of sort of basic, I suppose, kind of delivery, I think the key things we've learned are, using pre-recorded short delivery, very short recorded screencasts of maybe 12 or 15 minutes covering core topics, and using the face-to-face synchronous time to really engage with discussions with your students, have breakouts with the discussions, have engagement. So really encouraging this model of them viewing some kind of content, reading some content before, and then when you all come together in a synchronous, real-time space, use that for those kind of social interactions, the discussions, the opportunity for students to ask questions, maybe sort of surface any misunderstandings they have, and really develop their understanding that way. That seems to be growing examples of that practice are being the most effective.
Thank you, Catherine. Can we have a question for Dr. Ejrem? Really, I have more than a question from the audience. They are asking how we can enhance digital capabilities among students. What are the challenges faced by the universities? Doctor?
Okay, yeah, sure, I can hear. I'm just trying to unmute myself. Thank you so much for all questions and really nice feedback I can see in the chat and in the Q&A area. Very exciting. And the question is really interesting. Unfortunately, there is no cookie cutter, approach to that, and the kind of one perfect recipe. Obviously, the challenges that are encountered by universities are so diverse, and they vary, again, based on the available infrastructure, based on the priorities of the institution's strategic development, based on the human resources capacity of the university, right? So in terms of what you deliver and what challenges your students are facing might differ from one university to another. So far, of course, there are some common patterns that we can see. I think this one of the things actually very surprisingly for me that pandemics revealed while we were shifting, there was this forced shift towards online teaching and online learning for our students, that our assumption that faculty would be challenged more in acquiring these new technologies, right? Learning how to use those tools than students, because students already are very prone to using different, social media, different gadgets, etc. However, basic digital literacy is still quite of a high concern in many regions. As I mentioned, we have students from almost 45 countries around the world. So we are still analyzing. It's very early to say. Of course, we are conducting our in-house research while observing our students on how they adapt and how they respond to our strategies that we have developed here at Center for Teaching Excellence of University Canada West, and how we can prepare our students. So one thing that worked perfectly for us, first, of course, the good needs analysis, really frequent surveys of students, being connected to students who are isolated in their own local environment. If they haven't traveled, of course, many of our students are still connecting to our classes from abroad. So what we have done is we have developed the framework of Learning for Success workshops. It's the series of workshops that are focused on particular those digital literacies and other skills. So for example, the first week will be the general orientation week for students, where they will touch the base of all the skills they will need to acquire and gradually build up. So then it will be academic English skills, writing skills in particular, reading skills, strategies for blended learning. So we will equip our students. We will have really intensive support. So we will have mentors and advisors and tutors available to our students in those 4 weeks, where we will just only focus on their skills together with our students. So that worked for our institution. It might be different for other universities. So just wanted to share our experience. Thank you. Sorry for taking longer.
Okay.
Just wanted.
Well, thank you so much. I have 2 questions more, one for Dr. Catherine and one for you, Ejrim. Can we go for the question for Dr. Catherine Hack? The question is how we can design our curriculum to fit to remote learning. How changes are required in the current system?
Can you just say that again? That sounds like a really big question.
Yes, how we can design our curriculum to fit to remote learning, and how changes are required in the current system.
Yeah, I mean that is a really huge question, which I can't hope to answer in the next few minutes.
Just in a brief, if you can.
But I think what you need to focus on.
4 minutes more.
What you really need to focus on is what learning outcomes are absolutely critical for your students. So if you start from that kind of starting point and think about how you can best use the time and the space that you have and the resources that you have to get those interactions. So as I said in my previous answer, using that face-to-face time with your students for real interaction, for your students to talk about what they understand and don't understand. Think about your content and put as much as possible, through pre-recorded screencasts and things like that, so that you can really help students kind of navigate their information.
Well, thank you so much. I have a question for Dr. Ejrim. I think also it's really take time for it will. The question is, give some suggestion to effectively implement digital technology in teaching and learning.
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Yes,
I was
sure.
reading this, another interesting question there from Zahid Ahmad.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Got distracted, please.
The audience asking me to give some suggestion to effectively implement digital technology in teaching and learning.
Wow, that's huge again. Very well, actually, I understand that question. I mean, that is triggered by, of course, those challenges that we face. And as I said, for the first thing would be to have, very practical and quick one would be to form that really strategic task force in the university, bringing different professionals, and if needed, not only internally, but also externally, bring guest speakers who are really addressing that particular aspect or issue that you are focusing on. Then have your own brainstorm and develop strategies that are really address the needs of your students. Of course, sorry for being repetitive. It is so individualized. If you remember in one of my earliest slides today, I was sharing that personalized education. I believe that in the next 10 years, in the next decade, we are moving towards even to more personalized trajectories of education. So while we are preparing and addressing those to building that digital capabilities and really empowering our students with those skills and literacies needed for that personalized context, some strategic foresight might be developed today, again, built on the local needs and local resources. So the quickest one probably would be also identifying, while there is like loads and loads of different tools and technologies, etc., to identify in that, let's say, strategic task force or as an institutional, whatever strategic group you have, who is involved not only in advancing in rankings, because rankings is connected to that strategic development overall complex one. So really identify the focus of the aspects of in that taxonomy, for example, that might be helpful. What exactly are you going to focus, and to address them with already not only maybe exploring what other institutions are doing, but also devising your own approaches, unique and innovative, that also will lead to some new, probably action-based, practice-based research. So what I suggest is to really first start with that thinking in that direction, and then experimenting every time with the new strategy, to experiment, get feedback, and then, so it's probably more of that instructional design models that we use. That may be probably my suggestion as well, because just quickly, I think the role of institutions in the society, in the community is changing, but also the role of faculty is changing. We're no longer just the deliverers of content. We are facilitators, we are carers, we are even technical support sometimes, guys there, right, the experts. And also finally, I think that instructional design skills will be emerging as a more and more important skills for faculty, because that design thinking will allow finding best strategies to incorporate technology and addressing the quest for digital capabilities by your students and by your faculty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ejrim. Before we go to the final thoughts, it will be like 1 minute for each one of you. There is a lot of a question. We really promise everyone, all our audience, we're going to continue answering their question. Thank you for all of them, for their really valuable questions and their interaction with it. Okay. This is the end of it. I think our audience, Dr. Catherine Hack and Dr. Ejrim, they need a final thought. It's like a tweet for them. Where are we going with that? Okay, we start with Dr. Catherine. What's your final thought in 50 seconds, in 1 minute?
Yeah, I just think that we've got challenging but exciting times ahead, and we really need to think about what it is that we want to do and the best way to do it, and start reflecting on all of our practice, and that's the best way forward.
Thank you. Dr. Ejrim, what's your final thought?
Well, my probably final sentence, one sentence or one question would be, let's think, or can we think on how can a crisis be a driving force instead of being a disruptive force, being a driving force for our future achievements as a global society. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine Hack, Dr. Ejrem Shilibikova. We really learn a lot. Thank you so much for both of you. Thank you so much for the audience where they are with us from the beginning and really being with us for the whole time. It's a 90-minute, very interesting 90-minute. I just want to say thank you so much for both of you by name. We can, if there is a lesson learned, we can go with, I can say, even though digital capabilities are essential and growing, still the world needs a uniquely human education, and it is necessary to develop digital capabilities of a student and a staff. Thank you so much all, and thank you for our audience. And I promise you all the questions what has been there, you will receive the answer if we didn't cover it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next webinar, hopefully in Wednesday, January 20, 2021. And thank you so much, and happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.